Welcome to this afternoon session. Citizen Leader Lab is the host of the session, and the facilitators this afternoon of the session are the lecturers or team from UNISA, and they will certainly also introduce themselves, but welcome to Alda Dias and Annette Snyman, who will be the two facilitators this afternoon. We are very happy to be working with you this afternoon again. This is not the first time we're working together, which is so special. There is an ongoing relationship between the department at UNISA and Citizen Leader Labs School Leadership Forum. So thank you again for your time. And I must say ahead of time, I know it's going to be a successful afternoon because I said to someone earlier, the workshop is in bite sizes. It's not to overwhelm you, but today is all about balance. How are we as school leaders to keep vision, people, and personal well-being in harmony? Okay, leadership, as you know, isn't just about running a school. It's about carrying hope, managing pressure, and still showing up with heart. We know across the country, we've seen principals and teams doing incredible work under tough conditions. But how do you sustain that beyond just passion? And I think this afternoon we will learn lots about taking time as a community to reflect. And it's spaces like this where we can pause and we can take the time to reflect and to refresh. This afternoon session, I need to say this is important, has been funded by My School, My Village, My Planet. And that is something that we don't take lightly, and they've been a regular sponsor for more than now 10 years of the work we're doing in School Leadership Forum, and we are proud to be associated with them. So if you don't have a My School, My Village, My Planet card, can I encourage your school to take one out, or you to take one out and nominate your school as a beneficiary? I'm now going to officially hand over to Alda and Annette, and I'm not sure who will be starting off, but ladies, a big welcome from the Citizen Leader Lab team, School Leadership Forum. Thank you.
Thanks, Alvin, and thank you for welcoming all of us. From all of us here from UNISA, I would also like to welcome you to today's workshop on sustaining school leadership. As Simon has already introduced me, I'm Alda Dias, and I'm a senior lecturer at the Department of Human Resource Management. Between myself and my colleague Annette Snyman, we will facilitate today's session. It's so wonderful to have you all here and to see so many school leaders, educators, and professionals who care deeply about creating supportive environments for both your staff and your learners. So today we'll be exploring how to balance two demanding roles. Firstly, managing crisis, which often feels like our daily reality, and then secondly, looking at the well-being of our teams and ourselves. The aim of this workshop is to share insights, reflect on our own practices, and to learn practical strategies for building sustainable leadership. So please sit back, engage, and let's make this a relaxed but meaningful session together. So let's start with a quick look at our program for the session. We'll begin with a short introduction and setting of expectations, and then followed by 2 workshop sessions. We'll also have moments for reflection and space for open discussion at the end of each section. The idea is not to just listen, but also to share. We really want to hear from you as much as you hear from us. So before we get started, just a few quick house rules to help us all have a smooth session. Please keep your camera off and your microphone muted unless you're invited to comment or ask a question. This helps us to reduce the background noise and distractions. If you'd like to speak, simply raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. I'll call on you when it's your turn, and then you can unmute yourself. Alternatively, you are most welcome to use the chat box, type your question or comment and click send, and then we'll keep an eye on the chat throughout the session. Remember to lower your hand and to mute again when you're done speaking. You can also respond to comments or ideas using the emojis, a thumbs up or a heart or a clap, whatever fits the mood. This keeps the energy up and lets speakers know you're with them, even if your mic is off. So just to let everyone know, the session is being recorded, but only for record-keeping purposes. And then if you have any objection to the recording, please pop a quick note in the chat so we can make arrangements. And then finally, and most importantly, there are no silly questions here. This is a learning space, so please feel free to participate, reflect, and enjoy. The more we share, the more valuable today will be for all of us. Okay, so let's take a few minutes to get to know one another. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Just your name, your role, and the school or organization you're from, and then share one quick thought. What do you hope to gain from today's session? For example, you might say, I'm hoping to learn ways to support teachers during stressful times, or I want to reflect on my own well-being as a principal. So if you'd like to share verbally, raise your hand and we'll give you the mic. Anybody who wants to share? I see my colleague has also introduced herself. Annette, welcome.
Okay, I'm Annemarie Dievenage from a rural school and Pienaar Primary, and I really want to support my teachers more, because I realized that there is a lot of teachers with a lot of anxiety and things from home and from school based. So that's my reason.
I'm Caroline Walker. I'm from Queen's Private School, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I feel that you can, I'm the executive principal here, and I feel that you are never too old to learn, and you must be open to learn new things and new ways, and listen to other people's input. And yes, I also feel that our profession is under a lot of pressure with admin and all those things happening, and the teachers, especially this time of the year, with anxiety and things that that's on their plates. And I think we need to get new ways of motivating them and keeping the spirits up. So I hope I can learn from this platform and get a few new ideas, and also for myself to develop. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. I see Rakula. I'm sorry about the pronunciation, but you have the mic.
This is not perfect. The name is Rakula, but because of the province, it's Rakula now. I'm from Cape Town at Piakanya Primary School.
Welcome. And do you have any expectations of today's session?
Yeah, I'm still Elena Driver. I want to learn more. I'm expecting to learn a lot from you guys. Then after that, I will raise my hand and say, thank you for this and this and this and this and this and this. I'm still new in the management.
Thank you and welcome. And I hope we can reach your expectations for today.
Yes, definitely I'm going to reach it. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Albert Tabani, the principal of Madide Primary School in Bushbuckridge in Mpumalanga. My expectation is to learn from colleagues strategies on how to motivate demotivated educators. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Mokatisi Nkailan Tanke from Isaponte Primary School in the Northern Cape in Kuruman. Yeah, by the end of the day, I hope to have at least revive myself in terms of the new things that are coming as far as the management is concerned, not only to revive, but at least to renew my leadership style and also to resuscitate myself so that I can be a better leader than before. Thanks.
I can really tell it's going to be a fruitful and engaging session today, with all of you contributing and giving your expectations and introducing yourselves. So let's move to our next part of the program, where we explore crisis management and risk management. As we go through this section, I encourage you to think about the examples of your own schools. What's worked well, what's been challenging, and what insights you can share with the group. Our presenter for this session is Prof. Pietro Botha. Pietro, over to you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. It is so wonderful to have colleagues from all over the country. Yeah, that is really special. I am going to just put off my camera, and then I am going to share my PowerPoint, and we can start with sharing. I am from the Department of Social Work here at UNISA. We are a multi-professional team working together on this project of ours. So today I am going to share with you the whole intricate issue of crisis management and risk mitigation. So we all agree that schools should be safe places where learners can grow. But unfortunately, due to crises and disasters inside and outside the school, this is not always the case. So crises and disasters can be defined as risks to the physical and emotional well-being of our learners, our staff, and our community. If we look at the different types of risks, we get natural risks. So natural risks could be earthquakes, floods, storms, droughts, landslides. But in South Africa, luckily so far, we do not have too many natural risks. However, our colleagues in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape will know what havoc floods can create, and also storms and droughts. Health risks, that could be pandemics, food poisoning, poor sanitation, and all of us will remember COVID. And we will also remember a while back that there was incidents of food poisoning of our children. Human-made risks, those we have ample of: fires, accidents, buildings that collapse, violence, bullying. And I think in the school, often there's learner-to-learner violence, bullying, different types of bullying that we all fight. There are security risks, intruders, terrorism, theft, cyber threats. And we all are also aware that there was, or often, computers are being stolen from school, or schools are vandalized. And then lastly, we have administrative or operational risks due to poor infrastructure, a lack of safety training, and inadequate emergency planning. So I think part of the goal for today is to make us aware again of what are the potential risks that we need to plan for in our schools. Now we're just going to discuss and look at the different types of crises or disasters that you as a teacher or a principal have experienced in your career so far, and what are the lessons that you've learned from it. So before I give you the opportunity, I just want to share an example. I was involved with a student who studied gangsterism in a Johannesburg school, and it was very sad to be aware or to become aware of the physical assaults knife or scissors fights, bullying, and even threats to educators. And he presented results that the classrooms, there was a lot of fear and anxiety and undermining of discipline due to the gangsterism. And it even came to the fore that the school principal were involved with the gang. So teachers were stuck. So that was just one incident from my side. But let us share from your side. Please share crises and disasters that you have experienced so far in your career, and what experience can you share with other colleagues around that? You can just put up your hand. Hey, anybody? Alda, if you see hands that I do not see, please let me know.
I see a video that has just popped up.
A video?
Yeah, somebody's camera just went on, so I'm just quickly going to check. There's a hand. Monane, Isa?
Thank you very much. This is Monane Isa once again from Northern Cape. Yeah, we did experience a crisis here in our school recently. It was 2 months ago. And this is one of the reasons why I have invited my SMT, school management team, to this meeting, noting that the heading is crisis or disaster management, so that we are able to handle situations the correct way. There were some guys who just came into the school with knives, and then they wanted to attack one of the learners. Then the teacher got in between, and then that teacher who got in between, he was almost stabbed. I was also in class. I was called from class. I refused to come from class because I wanted to complete what I was doing in class. But that caused a problem. It was like I did not care as a principal for my teachers what will happen and so on. And to find that I didn't even know what was happening outside. I said, no, I must complete my task and then I will attend to that. So it was a lot of challenges and anxiety to learners and teachers. They were afraid and that they needed assistance. And then up to today, we have not got assistance for them to be okay in terms of professional help. That is what I can share with you. Thank you very much. I think my colleagues are here can also testify to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. I think we can just imagine the anxiety and the fear that incident brought about. And I think what one can learn from that, and that is why you are here today as well, is how can we be more proactive if things like this happen? Because it's an amazing shock. And it also has repercussions, post-traumatic incidences and, experiences. I see there's another hand. Although I just see view all, I can't see individual names. Maybe if you can just assist there.
It's Babini Fatjela.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for taking my hand. And also thanks for pronouncing my name and surname correctly. I think I'll just be brief. Similar to what the previous speaker said, is that what we experience in our school is that learners were preparing for the exams. I think it was last year when there was a fight between 2 learners the previous day. And then now the other one now took it upon, whilst the others came in the school at 7:30 to prepare for the exams. Then the one that was fighting with the previous day came into the school and stabbed the other one whilst preparing for the exams to death. And then as a school, we managed to control the situation. Because the learners were coming in the morning to the classes. Then fortunately, our school is so enclosed you managed to lock down the school, and then we tried to lock down all the learners, and they were inside the classes. Teachers were inside the classes, and then we managed to separate them from the crisis that was happening there up until the paramedics and the department officials arrived. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. So what we hear is that there is that immediate containment of the situation. We need to look at the physical and emotional safety of everybody. And then also bringing in the authorities, having the right procedures to manage, because you have not only the learners and the staff safety, but also, you have the parents of these learners. And then the aftermath of such an incident, the trauma and the shock and I have to go back to school, and will this happen to me as well? So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else? Okay, it seems that we can continue. Thank you for that sharing. So what we said is that we need to be aware of the risks and to manage those risks. The first step is to identify these risks. There are risks in the school, outside the school. Like we said previously, we need to be aware of the different types of risks. And if one is aware of weapons and drugs and different aspects within the school, that helps. You need to analyze the risk. How serious is this risk? Maybe in the last example, you did analyze the previous day, but did not expect that the learner might come back with another attack. So you need to analyze the risk in the specific situation and possible causes. Then it's important that one take action. We will look at who should be responsible for that action. After taking action in managing, like we said, containing the situation, one also needs to prevent future events. After that, you need to monitor to see, are we successful in the action that we are taking? And then we have to control this kind of risk on the long term. So that is important. What guidelines do we have? I think our authorities do give us lots of guidelines. There's, for instance, the South African Schools Act. There's the Employment of Educators Act. There's the National Education Policy Act, the Children's Act. And then very, very important, and I think you all are aware of it, is the National School Safety Framework. So if you haven't seen it, this is the first page of the National School Safety Framework. The National Safety School Framework wants the schools, learners, teachers to be prepared to prevent and manage problems, to be aware of what is happening in your school, to take action if something happens, like our principal shared with us. When this very, very traumatic incident happened, and to take care to build a caring school. So the NSSF has different pillars, and it is to promote safety and safe and secure learning environments, free of violence, bullying, and substance abuse. It is to develop the capacity of all the role players, and we will look at the different role players now, to prevent and to respond to safety threats, and to clarify the roles and responsibilities of stakeholders, because you will all know if there's a crisis, it's as if you have a freeze mode or a flight mode, but we need to be prepared to know who should take what responsibility. Support early identification and management of risks using a proactive rather than a reactive approach, and that is what we are trying to do today, and to integrate school safety into the overall school improvement and risk management. I see there's a question, where can we get this safety plan? I can forward it to you. It's the Department of Basic Education. It was written in, I can't remember now exactly when it was written, but I can forward it to you, and I'm sure your school principal will also have it, but I will forward it to you. So we have the whole school approach. Now, in this slide, it was taken from the National School Safety Framework. It says how to prevent violence. And this approach is not only applicable to violence, it's applicable to all kinds of crises and to risks like floods and natural risks as well. So who should be involved? So the first person is the principal, who need to take the leadership and need to ensure that policies are being applied. Secondly, we have the school safety committee. It's extremely important that each school has a safety committee who should be responsible for safety surveys and have safety plans, and also liaise with outside stakeholders to be prepared. We have our parents, and they need to be aware of problems, and they need to liaise with the teachers. Learners also need to come up and show the teachers where there are a crisis or a problem brewing. So an open relationship with the teachers are very important. With the educators, also that they again need to be have a positive discipline code, and I think discipline with parents, teachers also are important, because it goes hand in hand with the management of a crisis, and have an open relationship with the children and the teachers. The school governing body has an oversight function. If you have a student body, they also need to be part of the plan and the planning. Community organizations like NGOs, they are very important in the community when there is a wider risk, specifically in the environment. They can also be useful resources. And then school staff. We often forget how important our security staff and our ground staff are. They are the eyes and the ears of the school. So we need to bring them in as well. And then other school bodies like district support services. Right, let's continue then to the school safety plan. There should be a school safety committee, as we said before. Who should be part of this committee? The school management team, the school governing body, learners, parents and community members, as well as the local police should be represented in the school safety committee, which should really meet at a regular basis and they should develop a school safety plan. They should do risk assessments, and those findings should be the basis of the school safety plan. There should be emergency and evacuation procedures. There's also a code of conduct and a disciplinary policy. And then in the school safety plan should also be the policies on bullying, substance abuse, and sexual harassment. So if an incident happens, what do I do? And even, this is an incident of murder, an incident of harming each other physically. What is the procedure? What should we do? To ensure that we do it in the correct way. And also this committee in the safety plan, and the committee should be aware of contact details for emergency services and the police. Okay, I think the slide will be a little bit too small, but this will also be provided to you. So far, we have discussed what can be done as a school, what can be done as a community. But you can also ask, what can I do as a teacher to actually manage this crisis? How can I be involved? And this is a model of crisis containment and management, which was written by Monique de Klerk and Werner de Klerk as part of a PhD. And it gives you 5 steps. At each step, you can say, can I assist? Yes. Or can I not assist? No. If you can assist, you can continue to the next step of support. If you can't assist, you go to a no. So the first step is that you actually assess the safety at that situation. So you can say, and we've discussed it in this example, that immediately when the one learner heard the other, we had to assess what is the physical and emotional safety of this person or the group. And then you can say, okay, I can't assist. Then you need to refer. Maybe you have to refer to the police or to a psychologist. If you say, yes, I can assist, then you would go and say, right, how can I maintain this situation? Can I calm this person? How can I just react to the moment? If you can't, once again, you can refer to internal or external support. If you can even sit with that person and ensure the what, the how, and help in basic debriefing. Then you would in any case refer for detailed assistance, which was very disturbing, is that our previous participants said that they still didn't receive any assistance from the district or from wider systems. And then the last one, if you could manage and assist, you can then check on, first of all, yourself, because often this will leave a secondary trauma in you because you are upset, you are bothered by what happened. So you have to look at your own well-being and then also check whether the specific learner or individual is okay. Right, so that is what I'm going to share today. I just want to us to talk about our takeaways for today. What would you say can you take away from this short presentation? Anybody?
Yes. I see there's a question in the chats from Tia Pinar. How can we convince the employer to provide our schools with 24-hour security personnel?
Okay, let's open that for discussion. Guys, do you think it's possible? Can we convince our employers to give us 24 hours security personnel? Let's hear some ideas.
You know, that particular question always arises, and we have engaged the district and those bodies where they can offer security, but it came back with a nil return. However, we have managed to convince the department because they have provided the school with 2 law enforcement officers, but those law enforcement officers operate during the working hours. After that, they are gone also. And another thing is that it's so sad that the only response that we always get from the district, it's about funding, money, it's always money. And however, they are quick to respond when a crisis happens, like as I mentioned in our example, in our school, when there was that stabbing that happened, it's then that it was a wake-up call. Although we tried to be preventative, the only thing that they will tell us is about money. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that is really If you can't do your work and you're not feeling safe, how can the children feel safe to be able to learn? And yeah, I hear what you say is the desperate feeling of money. And maybe one can, and I think this example of having 2 law enforcement officers assisting is an example of how you can liaise with the community to really try and make a plan. So thank you so much. Alda, I see there's another hand and a question, but I can't see it in the chat box.
See, the question in the chat is, my question is, why should we even need to convince them about issues of safety?
I agree fully. And like I said earlier on, if I can end off with our quote to say, school safety is not just about preparing for a crisis. It's about creating a climate where every student and also every staff member feels secure, supported, and ready to learn. And it should be a basic principle. Thank you so much for your participation.
Hey, thank you very much, Pietro. I don't see any other hands. Thank you for that insightful presentation on crisis management and the importance of proactive safety planning in schools. You reminded us all that it is crucial for school leaders to anticipate potential risks and develop safety protocols to foster a culture of preparedness among the staff and the learners. So thank you very much, Pietro. So we'll now move over to our next speaker, Miriam, who will, together with Mariette and Khatoon, guide us through our next topic, leading for staff wellness and mental health. So Miriam will start us off, and then we will continue from there. Thank you very much. Miriam, over to you.
Thanks so much, Annette. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to Petro. That was really insightful. I really enjoyed your presentation. I hope everybody else did as well. So today, the second topic that we want to present is on leading for staff wellness and mental health. We are a team from the Department of Human Resource Management at UNISA. So it's myself, Miriam, and Mariette and Khatoon. Khatoon will be managing also questions in the chat, and if you need anything, please pop it in there. She'll get back to you happily. Mariette will take over from me in a few minutes after my presentation. So yes, let's go ahead. Sorry, before we go, I see there's a hand. You're welcome to speak.
Hello, this is Monani. I'm not sure if it is my screen. The screen is gone from my side. Maybe it's my network. I'm not sure if it is only with me, but I can hear you clearly. Oh, thank you. The screen is back. Thank you then. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. I hope everybody, yes, can see. So let's get straight into it. So firstly, I'd just like to say that I feel such privilege to stand before you today. Well, not really stand, but you know what I mean. For so many of you passionate school leaders, you know, from all over South Africa, you are the heartbeat of our schools. And so today's conversation, what we want to focus on is really about taking care of that heartbeat so that the rest of the body can thrive. I hope you'll enjoy it. So the first thing that I want you to think about is, well, we've all heard the terms wellness, well-being, mental health. It gets thrown around all the time. But what does wellness really mean to you? So just take a second to think about that just for yourself, you know. We've all heard these terms, but what I have here is that wellness is the act of practicing healthy habits on sorry, my screen is so on a daily basis to attain better physical and mental health outcomes so that instead of just surviving, you are actually thriving. So what we want to do is we want to aim for wellness. Wellness isn't just about getting through the day or about ticking off our to-do lists. It's about having the energy, the balance, the purpose to thrive. I love that part, that not just surviving, that you are thriving. So we want everyone in our environments, principals firstly, or school leaders firstly, and then take it through to the rest of the environment. We want them to feel fulfilled and not just operating just for survival mode. So in schools, this means creating spaces where both learners and leaders will flourish and not simply survive the workload. So what we really want to think about is the well-being of our principals, the well-being of our school leaders. Imagine that you, as a principal, I'm sure this has happened many times to many of you. Imagine walking into a staff meeting and you are feeling absolutely drained. And then you come into contact with teachers who are overwhelmed and others who are unmotivated. So this can have catastrophic effects on your entire environment. The well-being of both leaders and staff affects the whole school environment. Leadership isn't just about managing tasks. It's about mental wellness. It's about understanding personalities and really creating a supportive culture. Today, we want to explore how personality awareness can actually enhance wellness for everyone in South African schools, starting with the leaders themselves. So if you look at this image, it shows, a ripple effect, a domino effect, a cycle. If the principal or management team has good well-being, or it will get transferred onto learner outcomes, onto teacher wellness, and the cycle continues and continues around and around. So the well-being of you as principals and of management teams, it shapes our teacher morale, it shapes their performance, and it instills the culture of learning that you would want to have in your schools going forward. Now, we've all heard this saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like I said earlier, you as principals, you are the heartbeat of your schools, but you are also the most overworked and the most emotionally stretched. I'm sure you can all vouch for that. So today we want to ask you, we want you to take the time to really think to yourselves, how are you really doing? And how does your well-being affect the people that you lead? Because by knowing yourself, only then, or knowing where you, or understanding where your well-being may need attention, this is the first step to getting to a better place, to getting to a better environment for everyone around you. So take that moment, think about it. I'm not going to ask you to share your responses right now. It's really a reflective exercise. But yeah, so if you have more, if you work on your own well-being, you will have more to give. You will have a full cup. If you have a full cup, you will be able to give to others. And in turn, everything around you will flourish. So hopefully, I hope that even after this presentation, you will see the glass is half full and take that time for yourselves and for everyone around you. But what happens when the well-being of leaders is challenged? When leaders give their all day after day without refueling, the cost goes far beyond tiredness. Fatigue can quietly chip away at decision-making, at empathy, at creativity, the very qualities that make great leaders. So in schools, this can mean disengaged staff, a drop in morale, and even learners feeling this ripple effect. If you look at the slide, I can tell you your stress will trickle down, will filter down into your teacher motivation and morale. It will impact your innovation, and which will give way to you operating only in survival mode. Your staff morale will decrease, decision-making will become reactive, not reflective, and staff relationships can become transactional rather than transformational. But what happens if school principals and leaders instill a culture of wellness and well-being in their schools? Then the results are amazing. Well-being, as you know, is a state of holistic balance. It involves physical, emotional, professional well-being. But what will you get out of it? You'll get improved teaching and learning outcomes. You will get resilience in challenging contexts. You will definitely get reduced burnout and absenteeism among your staff. And leadership and school culture will be much more engaged, and you will have a contribution to the educational vision that you want to instill. We've also like to show you this wellness wheel. So what we've done today, we have also created for you a handbook that we are going to send to you to take home with you, perhaps at the end of the session. We wanted to attach it in the chat, but I think that's not possible. If we don't come right with that, it will be emailed through to you after the workshop. But this is a take-home activity. The Wellness Wheel is a visual tool that shows how our overall well-being depends on balance across different areas of life. So you'll see there are 8 different dimensions. We look at physical, emotional, social, spiritual, intellectual, and occupational wellness. But when one area is neglected, it can affect all the others. The goal that we want to achieve is harmony. It's harmony, not perfection. There's never a time that you will get to have optimal functioning in each sphere over here. But caring for each part helps us function and lead more effectively. So when you get the time after the presentation, go home, work through the Wellness Wheel and see perhaps what needs attention in your own life. So I've just given you a bit of background into wellness and mental health. Oh, I forgot to mention on my first slide, I actually showed that that although we chose this topic around 2 months ago or so, we didn't know when we were going to present it, but it just fell directly after World Mental Health Day, which fell last week, Friday. So it's a global phenomenon. Wellness is a challenge throughout the world, wherever you look, and organizations are trying their best to manage this. So today's focus, we actually have an exciting activity for you. I think my colleague did mention it in the chat that please get a pen and paper ready if you have one close by. Otherwise, you can open up, just pop up a Word document on your screen. We have a lovely short questionnaire for you to fill out, a little bit of a reflective exercise for you to see what type of personality that you have. And we are going to have an overview of these personality types and their characteristics. And then we're going to also talk about common wellness issues that are experienced by different personality types. So first, like I said earlier, if you know yourself, then you'll be able to know what are your strengths. And you can then we are in the same handbook that I mentioned, we have included the questionnaire for you. So you can take it back to your teachers and give it to them and then look at their results, and you'll be able to see what type of personalities that you are dealing with and how you could actually lead them in a better way based on their personality traits. So yeah, it's an exciting time ahead. Here we go. If you can, let me just get to the next slide. So it's called the Personality Color Quiz. All you have to do, okay, so we said download the PDF, but unfortunately I don't think it's attached. So I am going to have it on the following few screens, and I will give a few minutes for each screen so that nobody falls behind and you are able to answer each. There's only 8 questions. So all you have to do is for each of the 8 questions, you will have to just choose one option that you feel fits you best. So each option is marked red, blue, green, or yellow. I don't think you all have color pens right where you're sitting. So all you have to do is just write down the number 1 and then your option of what suits you best, red, blue, green, or yellow. And the color at the end, the color with the highest score, so the total number of the highest score that you have for each color, that would be your dominant personality type. And your second highest score is going to be your supporting style. Let's get straight into it. If everybody could give me maybe an indication that they are ready to go. So we have here we go. The first slide has the first 3 questions on it. I'm going to allow at least a minute or 2 for each slide here. So please go through it. I'm not going to read out each question. All you have to do is go through it slowly, take the time to think which one suits you best, and just jot down your answer. Okay, so there we go. Work through 1, 2, and 3, and I'll be waiting for you in case anyone's screen is giving them any trouble. So the first question reads, when working on a team project, I usually red, take charge to get things moving and done. Blue, focus on making sure the plan is correct and detailed. Green, make sure everyone feels included and supported. Or yellow, bring in new ideas and keep the energy positive. Right. Question 2 reads, others would describe me as determined, confident, goal-orientated, red. Blue, organized, precise, thoughtful. Green, kind, patient, dependable. And yellow, fun, enthusiastic, and optimistic? Like Khatin says, of your responses on a page nearby so that you'll be able to tally up your totals at the end. Let's get back to question 5. When faced with a problem, I tend to red, make a quick decision and take action. I think that's a lot of us. Blue, analyze the situation carefully before acting. Green, ask others for input and make sure everyone is comfortable with the solution. Or yellow, brainstorm creative or unusual ways to solve it. Right, moving on to question 6. In meetings, I usually red, want to get to the point and decide on next steps. Blue, take notes, ask clarifying questions and focus on accuracy. Green, listen carefully to others and try to keep the atmosphere calm. Or yellow, share ideas, encourage others and bring energy to the room. Okay, I'll again give it a few more seconds just for everyone to complete these 3 questions. I wonder which one will take the lead. I think it would be, well, not the lead, but the dominant personality types of principals. That would be really interesting. Okay, if there's anyone who isn't done, please indicate to me before I move on. Are we all good? Great. Here we go. It's just the final 2 questions. Like I said, a very short, quick, and sweet questionnaire. Number 7, when under pressure, I often red, become more demanding and push for quick results. Blue, get caught up in details and double check everything. Green, withdraw a little and try to keep peace, avoiding conflict. Or yellow, get distracted or look for something fun to lighten the mood. I must say, I think I'm leaning towards yellow, hey? Number 8, the type of task I enjoy most is red, reaching goals and achieving measurable results. Blue, organizing, planning and making things accurate. Green, helping and supporting others to succeed. Or yellow, thinking of new ideas and inspiring people. Right.
Sorry, madam.
Sure, please go ahead.
Sorry, madam. Can you kindly please share slide number 6 up to 9?
Sure.
Because it doesn't show on my
Question
side.
6.
I don't.
So I just went back
7,
one screen.
sorry.
A 7.
7.
So it's 7 and
Yes.
8. There's only 8. Only until 8. Can you see it now? Are we all okay? I see. Oh, it's so nice of Khatun. She's put up a poll for us. So if I can quickly, I'm sorry to the lady who couldn't see those last few questions. Would you like to for me to run through it quickly again?
Yes, I would appreciate, madam.
Okay, sure. Let me just go back to, so you said question 7 and 8. Okay, if you look also on your screen, I hope you'll be able to see it. It's the scoring grid. What the scoring grid tells us is all you have to do is tally up the total number of ticks that you put for each color, and that will give you your dominant personality style. Red personality styles are action-oriented and results-driven. Blue are analytical and detail-focused. Green are supportive and caring, and yellow are enthusiastic and creative. So if you haven't yet, please do answer the poll. Like I said, it would be really interesting to see. I see that red is in the lead at the moment, but we only have 7 responses. So if you could if you could please answer for us, we'd really appreciate it. Yeah, I hope that you did enjoy this activity. I want to show you what these personality types, like I mentioned earlier, when you know yourself, it's easier to work on those strengths, to go forward. Leaders have unique personality traits that can influence decision making, communication, and stress management. So I mentioned what each one stands for. So a red is a leader, someone who's very action oriented. Blue is an analyst. They are detailed, they are focused. Green is a supporter, and that is caring and patient. Yellow is the inspirer, enthusiastic and creative. So I wonder if, as you've answered this, could you see these characteristics in yourself? And then when it came out, when you tallied up your score to see which dominant personality type, were you like, oh yes, that makes sense? Or was it something completely new to you, surprising to you, It's something that you can think of and see. My colleague is further on in the workshop is going to explain to you how you can use each one of these personality types to better your leadership and how to handle different color personalities as well. Using personality insights for better leadership, like I said, she's going to walk us through it, but I just like to give you a little indication about it. It can help you leaders to adapt your communication to different personality types. It can guide task allocation according to strengths and preferences. You can improve well-being by understanding what triggers certain types of personalities and how they would like to cope with it. It can enhance team cohesion, motivation, and overall school culture. So having personality awareness, as you'll see in this little image here, it will lead to better self-management and then to improve staff management and ultimately to enhance school well-being, which is what we want. That's really what we are looking for. I'd like to end with that wellness isn't just a treatment plan. It isn't just something that we need to get done, a tick on our to-do list. It is the new leadership strategy. And before I hand over to my colleague to take us through those different personality types and their colors, I wanted to leave you with a little poem, just something a little nice and that I hope you'll enjoy. It's a poem by Sophie Dina. It's called Be Kind to Yourself. So I hope today you remember that the sky is not humiliated by its vastness, and the mountains remain unashamed of their height. Mother Earth and her oceans are not afraid of their size, and the sun is not concerned if someone has to squint their eyes. It will shine, and it will not apologize for its light. And like the trees teach us that it's okay to lose our leaves as seasons change and then come back to life, I hope that nature teaches us to look at ourselves and be kind. I hope that we don't dumb or shrink or fold into spaces far too tight. Yes, today I hope you look at yourself, and I hope that you are kind. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, people, but I'm handing over to Prof. Mariette, who will now take you forward through the rest of it. Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon. I'm not too sure if we still have some participants. I was hoping to see a bit more responses there to see what we are dealing with in the education environment in terms of the personalities of our school leaders. But as expected, I see a lot of red people, so that is quite encouraging. From my side, thank you for giving this platform to us. I will speak a little bit about the personalities, the characteristics of the different colors and what the different colors, personalities, issues are with wellness, and then how you as a principal should deal with these people, because you're definitely going to deal differently with a red person than with a yellow person, for instance. So yeah, I'm going to put my presentation on and then we can just go through that. Right, just to get back to the color personalities. If we think about the red person, it reminds me of a red robot. Now, depending on who you are, if you are a taxi driver, the red robot will probably tell you, hurry up, move it. If you're a very cautious person, you might stop at the red robot. But the red person is the fast-driven person. That's the person in the fast driving lane of the road. So it could be the taxi driver. The red person is the person that's very much focused on achievement. And I would expect that from a lot of school principals, because they have tight goals to achieve, they have tight timelines. So they're definitely going to focus a bit more on results than as opposed to the other colors, where the green person, for instance, is a person that would want to maintain relationships. So they would rather sacrifice maybe achieving certain goals or dishing out some instructions to maintain relationships. Now, quite a key aspect of leadership is the one big thing, and that is how you manage your people. So it is not bad for a school principal, for instance, to be a green person, but I think the balance will have to be, how do you balance your red characteristics and your green characteristics? Because you as a school principal, you need to maintain order, you need to have rules followed. So that can be in conflict with maintaining relationships. Further to the red person, this red person wants to see quick, visible results. So they do not like to engage in long projects, which has got a lot of meetings before they see any results. They want to see it very quickly. If there's excessive bureaucracy, it makes the red person feel powerless. A red person likes to be in control. They want to make the decisions. They want to dictate the terms. So if there's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy, they get frustrated. And I think with a lot of legislation and standards that govern schools, some principals feel powerless, as if they cannot achieve anything because they're fighting the system all the time. Unfortunately, the red person is also not very able to delegate tasks because they want to be in control. So if you as a school principal needs to run a project, you are going to select your members carefully. And if you need teamwork on something, you're probably not going to have too many red people on that team because there needs to be teamwork. I think the main characteristic of a red person would be that they value efficiency over processes and procedures. They want to see results. Now, the wellness issues that red people struggle with, and if you as a school principal or a red person, you are probably going to suffer from burnout because you tend to overwork. You want to take control, you want to drive, you work hard to get those results, so it could easily lead to stress and burnout. Unpredictability frustrates the red person. They don't like surprises. They want to know where they're heading at, and they go full steam for that. And obviously, if you as the red person are in a long queue at well, I don't think the post offices exist anymore, but in Pick n Pay or in the chemist, you don't really like standing in a queue. You're going to be irritable. You will become impatient, and you will probably do something while waiting for somebody. I've seen a lot of red people, they stand in the queue at the chemist, and behind their trolley, they do a lot of exercises, and it's up and down on the hills just to get the time passing, because they don't like wasting time. So that is the red person in short, and it seems to me it applies to most of the school principals. If I go to the blue person, the blue person is your analytical person. This person is very detailed oriented, and I was a little bit surprised to see so few responses on the blue one, but not completely. I might see that more among the teachers, but I think with the school principals being mostly red and green, it makes quite sense in that way. The blue person sets higher personal standards. They are really frustrated by sloppy work. So even if something is very urgent, they want clarity in their own minds that everything has been done by the book. They're not so much worried about the results. Everything must be done right. They exercise self-criticism quite a lot, so they will evaluate themselves and question themselves quite a lot. They are also discomfortable with uncertainty and change. Seems to me very few people like change. And then the same as in the case of the red person, they fail to delegate because they trust their own methods and their accuracy. And that's why they're not easy to persuade to delegate some tasks. And they are quite fearful of making mistakes because they are so accurate in what they do. And that doesn't mean that they do not make mistakes, but in their own minds, they want to be 100% sure they've done everything according to the book. The blue person, because they work so hard at not making mistakes, they can be deeply affected by emotional undercurrents, and they specifically feel very uncomfortable if they think that people think that they are not competent. So that's the blue person. The wellness issues that the blue person struggles with is that they overthink work too much. They tend to be perfectionists, so they can frustrate other people because everything must be their way. They get frustrated and anxious about unpredictability and when they experience a lack of control. And then they tend to be isolated. They isolate themselves on purpose because they believe in their own work and they don't want to be bogged down by other people's mistakes or tedious work. So that is the blue person. If we move to the green person, which is also quite a large percentage of you as school principals, you are really the calm people. You value relationships quite a lot. You're quite empathetic. You are very supportive. The green person is dependent on having a very harmonious and emotional, safe work environment. They love routine, stability, and consistency. And they do not like conflict at all. When they are in a discussion and they see that this discussion is leading up to conflict, they try to interrupt to calm down everybody because they get anxious when people are in conflict. They are hesitant to take risks or express unpopular opinions, obviously because they want to keep the relationship stable. Because they are trying so hard to maintain relationships, they struggle with emotional burnout because they suppress so much of their feelings that they are sometimes emotionally burnt out. Because they want to please everybody, they have difficulty in setting boundaries, they overcommit to tasks, and they experience quite a lot of stress when there are negative dynamics in the school. If there are undercurrents and there are different politics playing out at school, that stresses them out quite a lot. The green person, because they put so much effort into making other people happy, they are also very reliant on positive feedback and being appreciated. So school leaders, if they recognize that this is a green person, they must make sure to show them appreciation and not take them for granted. If we go to the last color characteristic, which is the yellow people, this yellow person makes me think of a sunflower which always turns its head towards the sun, and they really relish in bathing in the sun. And this is what the sunflower yellow people are. They are sociable, they are very enthusiastic, they are absolutely the people you use on a project when there are no real rules, there are not very much limitations, and they have a free hand in collaborating, in exploring, and being innovative to get tasks done. Obviously, because they are not so controlled and not so not doing work in such a planned manner, they will irritate, for instance, the blue person or even the red person. The red person wants the results quick. The yellow person wants to expand and investigate further options to get to a solution, and the red person is just too rushed to get to a decision, maybe. Because this yellow person is so dependent on creating ideas, they love feedback. So if they are excluded, ignored, or isolated, it gives them quite a lot of wellness issues. They require stimulation, obviously, because they want to be creative. They like brainstorming projects. Unfortunately, they can also get carried away and overcommit to certain projects. As we've seen, they are very much also relationship driven, the same as the green person. And then they are quite sensitive to criticism or rejection because they put a lot of effort into creating ideas and coming up with a proposal. And when it's shot down, then they feel personally quite offended with these. Now, some of you scored high on a certain color and maybe also scored on another color as the secondary color for your characteristic. What this means is that in certain circumstances, you will take a red personality. If you are very familiar with the topic that you need to deal with, you will probably adapt the red color characteristics. However, if the topic is not in your expertise, field of expertise, you will probably resort to, maybe if your secondary color was a blue, you'll probably go to the blue personality because somebody else has got more knowledge and they are better in taking the lead on that specific topic. The same applies maybe to the people that you are working with. If you have a lot of red people working with you on a team and they are more knowledgeable and they are very strong leaders, you as a red person might go to your second color, which might be green or blue, depending on who you work with and what the topic of your discussion is. So you will not always be a red person or, a specific color. You might sometimes resort to your secondary color, depending on the situation. Now, if you know what your own color style is, and if you use this questionnaire and you ask your teachers that they must complete this questionnaire, you can get an idea of what their colors are, and that might enable you to adapt your leadership style to what suits them, because in the end, you want to get the best out of your teachers. So I'm just going to give a few guidelines as to what are the typical things that you can do to lead people with specific characteristics. If the people reporting to you are red people, give them clear goals and autonomy. Don't micromanage them. They are quite strong leaders on their own. Keep the communication short and focused. I know some people struggle to get to the point and they go into lengthy discussions. To the red person, that is most irritating. They just want the short and the sweet and they'll get to the point. Now, obviously, we've seen the red people are very impatient people, and they might reveal their feelings by looking bored because the person dwelling on irrelevant information are really irritating them. If we go to the why am I not? Let me just go to my next slide. How do you deal with the blue person? The blue person is a person who's a perfectionist. He goes into detail. It makes me think of the police car with the blue lights. They keep law and order and they stick to rules, I hope, sometimes. But okay, if you deal with a blue person, don't give them a very vague instruction. Give them clear information, detailed information, and tell them exactly what you want. Just don't tell them to say, see what you can find out. They really need proper instructions. they also need preparation time. Don't ever in a meeting ask them to quickly respond to a situation, because they want time to think something through. They are very much appreciative of recognition, especially because they put in a lot of effort to provide high quality work. And because they are so detailed in their work, they tend to overload themselves with details, and they want to still look through another report and another report before providing you with feedback. Caution them and say, somewhere cut off, because we need now to make a decision. Right, the green person. The green person is the loving, caring person. Because he values relationships, I've mentioned it previously, he needs appreciation quite regularly. The red person doesn't. The red person gets his kick out of the results that he's achieved. But the green person needs it verbally, writtenly, anyway, but he needs appreciation. Obviously, he wants a very harmonious environment. When there are emotional undercurrents, he's completely out of his depth, and he feels uncomfortable. He doesn't want sudden changes, that he needs time to adapt. And as much as he needs appreciation, he also needs emotional support. So this is the one person that you need to check in with quite regularly. The red and the blue people, they can function on their own. You as a school principal need to check in with your green teachers. Because they want to please everybody, they tend to fail to set boundaries, and they try to help everybody, and in the end they suffer from emotional burnout. Then the last person is the yellow person. This is the happy, sunny person. Allow them creativity. If you need to arrange an events day, let them take the lead in creating events for that day, and let them take the lead in how the advertising and the marketing should be done, because they are very creative. They like to bounce off ideas. So you as a school principal need to put time aside to let them brainstorm with you and some teams. Obviously, the brainstorming might irritate the red person, but they need input, so you must allow them, and caution maybe the other color personalities to tolerate the brainstorming session, because that's what the yellow person needs to do his job. Obviously, also they need recognition and celebration of the achievements. Don't give them too many rules and restrictions when they have to develop a project, because they are so they get carried away so easily. You will need to check in with them to see that they stay organized and grounded, that they stick to the goals of the project and not divert from it too much. So that is how you should deal with the teachers with the different colors, so that they can be better than what they would have been having a leader who doesn't care about how they actually operate. Next slide. We will provide you with a workbook, and in this workbook, there's an example of this personality color quiz that you did. Make it a fun exercise and give it to your teachers to complete. And then also, we've provided there just an example of how to practically apply the personality color quiz when you, for instance, have to arrange a team day at your school. And then just to get back to tie it back to well-being. Well-being is not just about getting enough money to do your job. It's about your health. It's about your mental health. It's about exercise, sleep, work-life balance, everything that makes you as a human being functioning better. And we as school teachers really have the responsibility to look at every dimension of our teachers' life, not just to make sure that they come to school, do their job and go home. What they do at home has an influence on what happens at work. And I think my colleagues also refer to that. And I think Should you require any more information on well-being and mental health support, there are some contact details. Should you need that, if I'm not mistaken, that is also in the workbook. And I think that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? I see people are applauding. I think that was really, really interesting. We can see from the chats and the comments as well. Thank you very much, Miriam.
102 people responding.
Okay, so thank you very much, Miriam, Mariette, and Khatoon, for that engaging and reflective session on staff wellness and well-being. Oh, there's another question. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, just to chip in there. It is not a question per se. It is being appreciative of this session, especially the issue of wellness, because we deal with different personalities. And with what you have shared with us now, it makes me think of the staff that I lead. I may not know them in essence, because I'm just looking, I'm driven by the results. And I forget that there are personalities that you need to check in so that you understand how people operate, which gives me great pleasure that you have shared the info with us. And I'm also grateful that, according to me, according to my own assessment, it has just spoken the truth about me, because I resonate between the blue and the red. And as you have said, that sometimes you may be red, sometimes you may be blue, and whatever, which I really appreciate. And I think a take home is to say that when I organize an upcoming, we'll have to change our upcoming staff development in preparation for 2026. And we'll definitely use that workbook and the handbook that you'll be getting us. With those few words, thumbs up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mariette and Miriam, for the wonderful presentation on the well-being. To conclude from the well-being part of the presentation, we just wanted to share a video with you, an inspirational video, and we hope that you'll enjoy the video.